proxy war. So right from the outset, or from the beginning, from 1945, if you observe the two superpower countries, USA and USSR country. So these two superpower countries were trying to bring all the freedom countries, whatever countries are getting the independence or freedom, so that countries should join either of any of the bloc, either in USA or USSR. So these two countries wanted to improve the sphere of their influence, and this was done by supporting the two opposing sides in each of those countries. So in every country, this USA and USSR, these people were trying to bring, trying to divide all the people into two blocks or two sides. One, the person who is supporting the democratic capitalist, and the people who are supporting the communist ideology. So the people who are supporting the communist ideology, so they were supported by one of the group, USSR, and the people who are supporting the democratic capitalist ideology, they were supported by USA. So this was a thing, one was done by these two countries. And in this process, the US President Harry Truman, he authorized support for the anti-communist forces in Turkey and Greece. So in this process, Harry Truman, what he has done here, so the country in Turkey and Greece, the people who are supporting the democratic capitalist is nothing but anti-communist, who are hating the communism. That people were supported by Harry Truman. Harry Truman is nothing but the president of USA. Means USA bloc has supported the Turkey people and Greece people. In this country also, not all the people which supported anti-communist, nothing but the people who are anti-communist people, they were supported by this US country. And if you come to the Belgian colony in Africa, means this Belgium country, European country, was colonized African country. That country name is Congo. So in this Congo country, one of the leader, Patrice Lumumba, so he was a radical communist, and he led the revolution in the Congo country to get the independence. So once again I am repeating here, the Belgium European country colonized one of the African country. That country name is Congo, African Congo. So that Africa Congo country was freed or nothing but it led the revolution by Patrice Lumumba. Finally it got the independence in 1960. And so this country was leading towards the radical communalism side. Radical communalism is nothing but it was supported by the USSR, and this country also trying to form the communist government. But at that time, only in 1961, one US spy agency called as a CIA, the US spy agency CIA was killed Patrice Lumumba in 1961 to stop the radical communalism, means not to form the communist government. Instead, US wanted to form a democratic capitalist government. So this was a thing done by the USA. And even USSR and Cuba. So these countries also supported most of the Latin American countries. They wanted to spread the communist ideologies. They wanted to spread their powers in Latin American countries. In a Cuba, a revolution led by the Fidel Castro, and he built socialism in Cuba country, and he inspired many of the people in Latin America. And if you see Angola, in Angola also, it was occupied by, or it was colonized by Portugal, and it was given independence in 1975. And so this country also, Angola also formed the communist government. Coming to the Latin America, so Latin American countries, most of the countries were inspired by the Fidel Castro, and they wanted to establish the communist government here. But USA was trying to obstruct them. They were trying to they were trying to establish the democratic capitalist governments. They wanted to get the support from their countries. So in this process, one of their very popular leaders, Che Guevara, also was killed by the US spy agency or US Army. And yes, Allende, who was leading the revolution in Chile country, so he was also killed by the US Army. So Che Guevara also and communist. He also led the communist ideology, and even S. Allen also led the communist ideology. But these two people were killed by the U.S. Army. And even if you come to the USSR, and USSR also one of the superpower country, and they wanted to expand their sphere of influence. So in this process, so this country has faced resistance from few countries like Germany, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. So USSR wanted to establish the friendly governments in these countries, Germany, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, and they got the means they faced the resistance. Anyhow, they sent their armies, and then they faced many problems there. And coming to the China, by seeing these all situations, they wanted to disassociate from the USSR, and the USSR forced it on China to establish the communist government, but they were unable to pressurize on China. So USSR sent its army to the Afghanistan to install friendly government. So in the year of 1971, but US also tried the same thing here. They forced their rebels. They supported the rebels of Afghanistan, and they gave their army support to them. So that rebels are nothing but the Talibans. So between the USSR government, the government which was formed there, and the rebels, between them the civil war was continued from 1971 to 1985. So this civil war was continued up to 1985. Finally, so USSR withdrawn their troops, withdrawn their friendly government from there, and Taliban, who are extremely religious people, so who are nothing but those who are following Islamic beliefs. So these people have formed the government in USSR in the year of 1985. And once again I am repeating now. And if you see in Latin America, so Latin American countries, when they were getting the independence, they were inspired by the communist ideology, especially by the Fidel Castro. So this Fidel Castro inspired many people and many countries to follow the communist ideologies, especially in this Che Guevara and S. Allen. So these people, when they were influencing towards the communist ideology, so these people were killed by US Army. And USSR also wanted to expand their sphere of influence, and they faced resistance from the Germany, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. So they've sent its armies, and finally they dismissed unfriendly governments there, so who were not supporting in this country. So that people were dismissed their governments, and USSR supporting people were formed the government in these countries. And in this process, China also opposed this USSR. They wanted to disassociate, but USSR pressurized them, and finally they were unable to pressurize them. So, and if you see Afghanistan situation, also the same thing was happened here. In 1971, in Afghanistan, USSR formed the friendly government. They installed the friendly government there. So by seeing this, US also supported the rebels of the Afghanistan. So these are rebels supported by US, and they have given army support also, and the weapons also supplied to them. So in this process from 1971 to 1985, there was a civil war in Afghanistan. Finally, by seeing the situation in 1985, USSR had to withdraw from the Afghanistan country, and the Taliban has formed the government. So this was about the proxy war. Military alliances. So already we knew that there was two camps, the two superpowers, USA and USSR. So these two countries have manufactured nuclear weapons to protect themselves. So these people already they have manufactured the nuclear weapons, but they knew that if they go for the war with any country, or these countries also fight each other, so neither of them will win. Why? Because the impact of the nuclear weapons will be affected to the two countries. So there will be impact to the two countries. So to control or to protect themselves, they have went through the strategies, military strategies. So what kind of military strategies they have followed here means They formed military and strategic alliances like in the western countries. If you see the USA has formed with the help of the western countries military alliances. The first military alliance was in the 1949. So it was formed with the western countries. That organization name was NATO. So not NATO is nothing but a North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So once again I am repeating here, with the help of the western countries, USA has formed one organization, that is a military organization. That organization name is a NATO. NATO is nothing but North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In the year of 1949 it was formed. To counter this, what happened here, even USSR also will form anyhow. Once USA formed that one organization, so that rivalry of the USA is USSR. So it also had formed one organization. So that organization name is means that pact is called as a Warsaw Pact. With the communist ideologist countries, whatever the communist nations were there, they all together formed one pact. That pact name is called as a Warsaw Pact. So by saying this again, USA formed two more organizations. One is a SEATO. SEATO is nothing but Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. Once again, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. And one more organization is CENTO, Central Treaty Organizations. So in this process, USA has formed three military alliances organization. So one is a NATO and SEATO and CENTO. But coming to the USSR, with the communist nation, it has formed only one pact, one organization, that is called as a Warsaw Pact. Even though they strengthened their military blocks, but they knew that the fighting wars would lead to the massive destructions. So they formed their military alliances and their own organization, military blocks. But if they go for the war, what happens here? There will be a lot of destructions of every country. Even themselves also it will be affected. It will be destructed or damaged by even human life. And one more thing is what, by forming the military blocks, there was a threat to the other countries. The whole civilization was threatened by these blocks, military blocks. And it was created the intense fear among all the countries. And these alliances helped the superpowers which wanted to expand their influence. So what was the main aim of the superpowers actually? So these superpowers wanted to gain something. So in this process, they were forming these all things. What was the main thing they wanted to gain here means, the first one is the vital resources like oil and minerals. The superpowers, they have growing with the industrialization, and they were having a lot of money, but they needed some raw materials to run their industries, especially like oil and minerals. Without oil and without minerals, their industries cannot function. So that is the reason these superpowers wanted to expand their influence. And second point is markets for their products and places to safely invest their capitals. So with the industrialization, they were they were manufacturing a lot of things, but that products cannot sell in their own country. So they wanted to spread their own market. To spread their own market, the superpowers making friendship with the other countries, means whatever the countries were getting the independence, so with that with their ideology influencing them, and they were making the friendly ally with them, becoming ally with them. And not only that, and with this market they were gaining a lot of money, and that money also they wanted to invest as a capital. So in their other countries they wanted to invest. The next point is military bases to launch their troops and weapons. And not only the market products, even military bases, troops and weapons also they were manufacturing. A lot of arsenals, a lot of weapons and nuclear weapons, these all were manufactured by these countries, and they wanted to benefit from that. How they will benefit? If they bring all the countries under them, and that countries also needed these arsenals and nuclear weapons to protect themselves. So that will be manufactured by these countries, and that countries will pay amount to them. So that was the main thing. And the next one is spreading their ideology. And USA is spreading the democratic capitalist ideology, and USSR is spreading communist ideology. And coming to the next point is gain economic support to pay huge military expenses. Means they wanted to gain the economic support. For what purpose? To pay huge military expenses. Whatever they are manufacturing, that all amount they wanted to get it back. So that is the reason they were getting the economic support from the other countries. So this is about this is the thing they needed actually. So for this purpose only the military alliances were made. And once again I am repeating here, why superpowers wanted to gain these all influence, why they wanted to influence or why they wanted to impact other countries means, first thing they wanted to get oil and minerals from other countries, and second one, whatever the products they are manufacturing, for that they needed a market, so they wanted to sell in other countries, and whatever money they gained, whatever the profit they got, that money they wanted to invest in other countries also. And military also they wanted to use, means their army they wanted to send it to other countries, and manufactured arsenals and weapons also they wanted to sell to them. And next one is they wanted to spread their ideology, like a communist ideology and a democratic capitalist ideology. These ideologies only the main ideologies were spreading over throughout the world, and they wanted to gain economic support by paying the military expenses. So this is the thing they wanted. Now our next topic is arms and space race. So here both the USSR and USA spent huge amounts of money to conduct research into weapons and arsenals of devastating nuclear arms and missiles which could strike across continents. So here USA and USSR, they were spending a lot of amount. The purpose of research. So what kind of research they wanted? Here to manufacture the weapons and arsenals. So arsenals also mainly the nuclear arms and missiles. Missiles are nothing but throw from one place to another place. So these all research, these all manufacturers, they wanted to make it, they wanted to invent these all things. For that purpose they were spending a lot of money. And these countries had a lot of enough nuclear arms. Even whatever the nuclear weapons they had, that nuclear arms were enough to destroy the earth many times, not the one time, many times they can destroy it. So these both countries only had that much of nuclear arms. And even though there was a competition between these countries, and what kind of competition? And these countries, once they manufacture the nuclear arms and they wanted to manufacture for other countries, and USA has helped to manufacture the France and Britain, and USSR helped the China to build their own nuclear arsenals, and these countries also manufactured their own nuclear weapons. And there was a race between this USA and USSR. What kind of race? The scientific race here. Firstly, if you observe here, USSR was launched first satellite. Means USSR was launched first satellite. That satellite name was Sputnik. And first human who was sent to the space, his name was Yuri Gagarin. So USSR first satellite name was Sputnik, and first human who was sent to the space, his name was Yuri Gagarin. And even USA also sent his one of the scientists, his name was Neil Armstrong. He went to the moon in 1969. So what kind of competition here they had here means the competition between the space and satellites. So these satellites, what purpose they used here? Satellite Sputnik was launched here, and by seeing this, even USA also launched, and other countries also started launching. So why they wanted these satellites means for the spying, to get the information of other countries. And with the help of the satellites, so they wanted to direct the missiles to throw from one country, means the missiles are nothing but bombs. They wanted to throw from one country to another country. To show this direction, the satellites, they wanted to use it. So this kind of arms and space race was ran between the USA and USSR. So once again I am repeating here, arms and space race between the USA and USSR. Firstly, they spent a lot of money for the manufacturing of weapons and arsenals. They had a lot of nuclear arms which can destroy the earth many times. And by seeing this, France and Britain, China also built their own nuclear arsenals. And the satellite competition. Firstly, USSR was established, means launched the first satellite. Its name was Sputnik, and first human who sent to the space was Yuri Gagarin. And even USA also did many things in this process. Neil Armstrong was sent to the moon in 1969. And these space competition, what purpose they use it here, what's satellites, what purpose they use it means for the spying, is to get the information secretly from other countries information and directing the missiles. So these purpose these satellites were used. And if you see some of the informations also we had, what is that, as the rival powers accumulated destructive weapon, the world was constantly threatened by nuclear holocaust. These people were prepared, these all arsenals, but the whole world was threatened by these people. And it was an intense fear, it had intense fear that which country will start the World War 3. So there was a fear, and people of all countries lived in a constant fear of war. So there were many moments when nuclear war between the two countries seemed imminent. By seeing some situation, it was understood that most of the countries understood that it's going to start the World War 3. So that kind of situations was created, but even though with the discussions, with some discussions only it was ended. And if some of these were the incident relating to the shooting down of U-2 US spy plane over USSR. So once the USA has sent one plane to the Russia, that name was U-2 US spy plane. It sent to the USSR to get the USSR information. So it was blasted by the USSR. So the situation seemed that USA will go for war with the USSR. But anyhow, with the diplomacy, with the discussions only, it was ended. And not only this, the discovery of Soviet missile built up in Cuba and several times during the Korean and Middle East wars also. Non-alignment movements. It's very important topic, and it's related to the India and how India has developed after 1945 with the help of the non-alignment movement. And now we are going to discuss it. So in the 1950s, if you observe, the world was divided into bipolar. Means the total world was divided into two groups. One group is USA and one more group was USSR. These two countries was means playing the key role as a superpowers. And these three countries wanted to spread their influence based on three things. One is military supremacy, and the second one is ideological conflicts, and the third one is to gain the economic supremacy. So once again, keep in your mind the main supremacy, means the main aim of the superpowers were main three things. One is the military supremacy, and the second one is ideological conflicts, and the third one is economic supremacy. So based on these three things only, the superpowers played a key role. And at the time the situation was divided into bipolar, means two groups. But if you observe the countries after the 1945, then when the UNO was formed, the countries slowly started getting the independence. Why? Because USA also played key role to give decolonize all the nations from the France and Britain. So all the countries were started decolonizing by them. But these countries were in trouble, like they were leading the poverty, and they were having the many diseases and inequality and colonialism. These all things were going on. So these people were focusing on these things. But what about these things? What about these poverty and disease, inequality and colonialism? Who will look after this? So that was the main issue of decolonized countries. To overcome their problems, to overcome these all the problems, so some of the countries which have got the independence, that they decided to not to join in USA or USSR blocks. Means the leaders who got the newly independent, so that countries decided that not to join either of any of the bloc. Why? Because if we join, our problems will be continued in the same way. So these people will look after these three things, but they never look after our problems. So instead, we should go with a third option. So for that purpose only, they conducted one conference where in a Bandung, Bandung is located in Indonesia. So in this city, one conference was conducted. So this was the first Asia-African conference. So Bandung conference was the first Asia-African conference where the 29 nations of people were joined, represented. So in these main leaders, so who are the main leaders here? The Nehru and Nehru from Jawaharlal Nehru from India, and Jamal Abdul Nasser from Egypt, and Tito, Josip Broz Tito. He was from Yugoslavia. So these three leaders played the key role here to form the new organization. So that new organization is nothing but non-alignment movement. NAM. So briefly we can call it as a NAM. Once again I am repeating, to overcome these problems, so some of the new leaders, newly independent countries, leaders, they wanted to go with the third option, a third organization. So that third organization is nothing but non-alignment movement. So this conference was held in Bandung, which is located in Indonesia, and this conference was the first Asia-African conference, whereas 29 nations leaders were represented. And in this, mainly three leaders played key role here. First one is Jawaharlal Nehru from India, and Jamal Abdul Nasser from Egypt, and Josip Broz Tito from Yugoslavia. So in this, and Jawaharlal Nehru played as acknowledged as the chief spokesperson. So this was the main movement to paved for the non-alignment movement, and this is the way it was established, and it was called as a international organization. And if you see here, first summit, and what was the main aim of these people means to promote the cultural economical problems. Means these people, they wanted this international organization main aim to promote the cultural and economic cooperation. So cultural and economic cooperation between which countries? The newly independent countries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So they wanted to promote these all things, cultural, economic, and cooperation between which are newly emerging countries, nothing but newly independent countries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So this was the main aim of these people. And for this, first summit was held, first meet or first gather was held at where? In Belgrade. Belgrade was located in Yugoslavia in 1961, first summit was held. So there 25 members were of the countries was attended here. So 25 member countries were attended in 1961. But if you observe, by 2012, 120 members were attended with the 17 observers. So in this, 17 members will observe all whatever the problems are there. So whether it's perfectly done or not. So they are called as observer countries. So once again, first summit was held in 1961 at Belgrade. Belgrade is located in Yugoslavia. So this is conference, this is summit, different things. And here 25 members were attended. And in this first conference, 29 nations were attended. But by 2012, if you observe, totally 120 members were attended. Means it has grown up, all the membership was grown up to 120 countries and with 17 observers. And what was the first summit was what was the major concerns of this summit? We'll see here. There were three major concerns. So what was the three major concerns? Cooperation among the members nations of NAM. Most of them had newly emerged as free countries. Means whatever the countries were getting the independence, so that all countries should have the cooperation. They have to cooperate each other to develop. So especially which are countries getting the independence. That was the first concern. And second concern was the growing Cold War tensions and its impact on the world at large. And second one is what? Growing already Cold War tensions. Already USA and USSR was creating the Cold War. So they were not fighting each other, but they were encouraging, they were provoking other countries to fight. So these countries, whatever the countries were getting the independence, they should be protected from that countries. So that tension should be reduced. and that impact should be reduced. That was the second major concern. The third one is to prevent any of the newly decolonized independent countries from joining any of the military blocs. So the third point is the main point here. So they were trying, this NAM was trying not to join any of the country to in the two superpower countries. So that was the main third major concern. So suppose example, already these all countries, India, Egypt, Yugoslavia and some other countries got so one of the country not got the independence and it's going to get the independence, example. So that country, in any African country, so that country was forced by USA or USSR to join in both of them or any of them. So NOM will try, so NOM will involve in that country's matter and they will prevent that country not to join, so in that superpower countries. So instead they should join in the NAM to cooperate each other and to develop our countries. So if they join, what happens, that superpowers will benefit, and moreover there will be chances of Cold War tensions. So due to this, again that countries will be affected. If the superpower countries go for war, so the whatever country got the independence, they will be affected again. So that was the third main concern. So that was the NAM has decided to promote these three major concerns.